Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD, BlenderHD. You want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, July 8th. We'll be taking a look at the 5-game MLB DFS slate for tonight on DraftKings, as well as some props, some pick probably. A bunch of other stuff where we're heading into All-Star break. We got tons of stuff on tap. We got WNBA. Right, we got PGA, we got MMA's coming back this weekend, so we still got stuff going on. Remember to tune in later today at 5 p.m. Eastern for Grinders Live. They'll be breaking down the slate in much more detail, followed by Crunch Time at 6 o'clock with Kevin Roth. And we do have to monitor some weather today, but since it's Monday, you know what we do on Mondays. We bring in James McCool. Mondays with McCool, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. And James, I remember a long time ago this season, James, we set an over-under. I forgot what date it was on when we'll get sick of the MLB season and be wondering when is NFL coming back. And I believe the over-under was around this time, like a week before the All-Star break. And I think it was a pretty sharp line because when does NFL come back?
Yeah, I think this is about where you and I usually start to look at the baseball season and just like, all right, I'm kind of tired of the bad beats now. Season gets to you, and yeah, I'm ready to start drafting best ball and start getting ready for NFL at this point. And that's not to say, there's still gonna be edge in baseball. Like, I'm still gonna be happy to play, but I'm probably not gonna be as happy to play every day like I have been. Like, this is the point of the season where I'm picking my slates a little bit more prudently and not just being like, oh well, I could degen today. Like, I'd rather degen something else right now.
To be fair, I've noticed in the past couple of seasons, since I've been betting props and doing pick'em. Now, previous season was more pick'em than props since Kentucky only opened for regulated sports betting last year, that July and August are the least profitable months. I mean, I had a good August to be fair, I had a very good August last year, but it could be said, I mean, this is pure speculation and theoretical and hypothetical, that basketball's over, hockey's over, NFL's not going on, that like the only major sport, I mean, golf is all year round. The only major sport that's really going around is MLB, WNBA, a little bit there, that maybe there's more people looking at the numbers now than at other points of the year, because some people have speculated that because I know plenty of people that have bet props for a long time that are like later season MLB is like their least profitable. Like early season is their most profitable, obviously, because we don't have much of a sample size. The inefficiencies in the markets could be much wider. But now with more, there are people that were betting NBA props all season are like, okay, time to look at MLB. NHL props all season, time to look at MLB. So maybe the markets, the prop markets are a bit sharper on average. I mean, the opener's still weak. I mean, you could still take advantage of some of that, but maybe that's where, James, some of our love-hate relationship with July, August, hot, summer, there's only baseball going on. It feels like every day, like what day of the week it is, I have no idea, because it just feels like it's just baseball slate after baseball slate after baseball slate. But maybe there's something to it, that being that it's the only major sport, that maybe it's more prudent. And I'll give an action item. Maybe it's more prudent that if you're doing props and pick 'em, DFS, it doesn't matter because nothing changes.
Right.
But props and pick 'em, maybe this is the time where you focus a lot more on grabbing openers, getting to the prize picks board early, and less focus on, 1 p.m. updates, 2 p.m. stuff. And it's just like, maybe instead of to me, I may lessen the width of what I bet and focus on the time of what I bet, meaning that I'll bet more on overnights and like early morning stuff, and then just like I'm done. And like
Yeah.
I'm not going to be having like 300 props across the board.
It's hard, man. I don't. I think that there is definitely something to the lines being sharper at this point in the season. I think that it is likely more on the side of the books now have more consistent data on the players that we are seeing day to day, right? I mean, we had rookies who debuted earlier on in the season, and they have a sample size on them now. We have guys who made changes in the offseason. We have more sample size on them now as well. Like, think that books likely reacting to the in-season data. It's now more consistent. So you're going to find less edges that you could exploit. I think the other big part of it is not only do books have better data, but they understand where their leaks were earlier on in the season. So like for a good 2 months or so, walks were just printing money. Like if you could find walk bets on a lot of players, you could just print money. Unders were printing, or like the books just had no idea how to price walks. In the same way that last year, books had no idea how to price steals. For like 2 months, you could just slam steals, and there's so much edge on them because they didn't know how to price them. So I think that's another part of it is once we get into July and August, books start really clamping down on where they find their leaks and being better about being more conservative with things that have caused those leaks. So I think that there's a lot of that goes into it as you get closer into the middle of the season. And we see this for NBA too, right? A little bit of a lesser extent, but January in NBA is brutal because we have a couple months of data and books know where their leaks have been. They have better in-season samples on these players. And January, I think, is that point in NBA betting where it is enough of the season has happened where those leaks can be plugged and the sample sizes are more consistent, but we haven't quite gotten into the absolute chaos that is late season NBA, right? That happens in February forward. So I think January is that really rough spot for NBA, similar to what we're seeing with, July and August for MLB, where we've had a good chunk of the season. Books can start to plug those leaks and start to really rely more on in-season samples. But we haven't quite gotten into the point where attrition is really hurting teams and where teams are starting to look into the playoffs and be a little bit more conservative with their batting orders and with their rotations. So I think every season kind of has this point except for NFL. Because NFL, the samples are so short that you're going to be able to find those edges all year. You don't worry about it. So I think for these longer seasons, this is kind of, you hit that midway point, middle of the season. It's just hard to grind out the ROI. And on top of that, we have the attrition of the bettor, right? I mean, you and I my volume for betting, I don't think is as much as yours is. But I mean, when
you're saying, James, you're saying like the rank and file Joe Schmo toilet bets guy, that they're getting deposit bonuses to
right.
lure them back because they've gotten killed earlier in the season. And let me just say, James, that it's not like we're spreading doom and gloom. Like there's money to be made. I'm gonna make some money. It's just that like the sign. Okay, here's the doom and gloom sign. Right? If you're coming here going, oh, Jordan said July and August MLB props, just don't bet them. It's like, no, I make money in July and August. That's fine. It's just not as much as the other points in the season. If you ever see me at this point of the season, like in July, like once you start seeing me doing best ball drafts, the edge has gone elsewhere because like that's like the lowest. Like if I become a best ball tout, right? That means like the edge must be gone everywhere because that's the least thing I ever want to do. And no offense to Eric and Bime4 and the Spike Week guys, and that, everyone, Pete Overzet and Slowcast and doing that, that's all fun and games and all good. There's huge edges in best ball. It's like having the Super Bowl showdown slate for NFL, which typically has a humongous edge, but that's it. It's like it's 1 year for one slate.
Right.
That's the reason I don't play best ball. And then you have to manually draft everything. So it's not that there's huge edges in best ball, but you have to live like 40,000 lifetimes in order to realize it within one standard deviation. That's the reason I don't do it. But if you see me going, well, that looks pretty awesome compared to everything else, then the doom and gloom has set in. So we're still good with MLB props this season. It just maybe don't go balls to the wall on them just because you're not doing NBA or you're not doing it. If you were doing some volume in NBA and NHL, maybe it's not well, I'm now going to triple up on baseball. If you're going to do that, I would suggest focusing mostly on openers. And obviously the limits are lower on openers, mostly on Prize Picks and Underdog, the early boards that come up. But maybe this is not the time that, if you wake up late, if you're first looking at stuff at 3:00 in the afternoon, I wouldn't be focusing on those times, even though with the props and pick 'em package here at RotoGrinders, I mean, you could still use our stuff, but use the overnight stuff, use the opening stuff, get up, but do this stuff before you go to work, not after you come home from work.
Well, and we have said it before on a show when we talked about this stuff. It might have been 2 months ago. If you are getting your bets in at 3 p.m., either do it on pick 6 if you have access, because those lines do not change from open, or play DFS. It's just especially at this point in the season, the edges are so much less after things have moved that you do really need to be prudent about it. And a lot of this is to say, I was alluding to the volume thing, but a lot of this is Jordan and I mean, I probably have 40 to 45 bets any given day, right? I'm spreading my exposure out quite a bit. So I am.
That's like a third. That's like a third of me.
Right. I said, yeah. I said my volume is very likely not near as much as yours is, but I have much more volume than the regular bettor at the same time, right? I'm still getting in quite a few bets, and I get all of those in at before 8 a.m. Eastern, right? I'm up at 5:30 grinding this stuff out. So as much as I'm not getting the open line, I'm still getting things before they move, before the general public comes in, and a lot of the edge that I gain, I also mitigate the downsides by hedging through with having a widespread portfolio. If you are betting 6 or 7 bets at 3 p.m., you might as well just build a DFS lineup at that point, because that's basically 6 or 7 bets that you're putting together in a lineup. So,
right.
It's just important. And our job, Jordan and I's job specifically, is to try to help people make money. And people don't necessarily like to hear the thing that we are saying right now, but we're trying to help you not lose money at the same time of making money. So it's important. In the same way that contest selection is important in DFS, being prudent about the bets that you make and understanding when you need to make them is also important in betting.
The BCWU rule applies much more during these time periods than earlier in the season. What is the BCW rule? Do you rule? Before Cardi wakes up.
There you go.
Get those bets in before Cardi wakes up. You'll get better numbers. Okay, let's talk about this is a 5-game slate. Tonight we got Cincinnati, Minnesota. They have 5 totals. We got some in the 4s. I'm looking at the pitching slate right now. We'll bring it up on the screen. We got Chris Sale, 10.5K against Arizona, at Arizona. And then we got a whole bunch of people that maybe it's a good time to play in FanDuel today, where you only have to play one pitcher. So you could just plug in Chris Sale and not have to worry about anything. I mean, obviously Sale could get hit. it's not a good sign. I don't know. It's not a good sign when Andrew Abbott and John Gray are the next best options on the slate. We got John Gray against the Angels. We got Abbott against the Rockies. I mean, they're good matchups. Eric has already tagged John Gray. He does make a good point in his little thing. I mean, he's 7K. The strikeouts for John Gray overall have been way down. But a lot of that is due to against split, like against lefties. And the Angels really don't have many good lefties. I'm assuming we don't have to talk about Chris Sale. Chris Sale's the top pitcher on the slate. Is the highest strikeout, upside, 10.5K, yada yada. But I know the Rockies aren't very good. But do you want to play Andrew Abbott at 8,200, and you have John Gray at 7K? I mean, but then I'm saying Andrew Abbott and John Gray are not good. And on a two-pitcher site like DraftKings, I guess they're going to be the chalkier options. But then you look at the rest of the pitching slate and you go, I don't want to play those guys either. But is John Gray and Andrew Abbott so much better than the Ryan Feltner, Chris Flexen, Gavin Williams, the Gilbert Diaz, Chris Paddock against the White Sox on a pitch, did probably not thrown more than 5 innings at most. So how are you? Here's a better question. How are you projecting John Gray today?
Well, John Gray projects okay. The issue, his strikeout rates have dropped in the recent sample. He's not a super high strikeout guy as is, but his strikeout rates have dropped a little bit. Granted, I wrote up in the newsletter this morning that he has been unlucky. He's a low ground ball rate guy, and his BABIP is about 60 points higher than we probably would expect. And his left on base rate is about 16% lower than what we would expect. So we should expect him to get better. I do think that he's underpriced for what we should expect from a pitcher like him. He's priced appropriately for his recent sample, but he's underpriced based on where we think that he should be. So probably projected somewhere in the 15, 16 range. I think that that's fine. I would 100% rather play John Gray than Andrew Abbott, because Andrew Abbott looks awful. And I think that the Rockies actually, we'll talk about the stacks, but the Rockies probably offer the best leverage on this slate by a long shot. But yeah,
we're on the same bit. James, we're on the same page there when we get to the tiers. But outside of Gray and Abbott, like Ryan Feltner against the Reds. The Reds have the highest team total, I believe, almost about the same as the Twins. He has a 5.5 strikeout prop. I know it's more more towards the under there, but Cincinnati has a bunch of strikeouts, and Feltner's. Cincinnati is a good hitting ballpark also, but it's nowhere near the ballpark factor of Coors. If people are just willingly going to play Andrew Abbott at 8,200, I will unwillingly play Ryan Feltner at 5,500 and close my eyes, because compared to the rest of the pitchers on the slate, I feel like why not? Why not take a shot on him and then pay 8,500 for Gavin Williams or something? It just seems like, hey, 5,500, he could pitch 7 innings if he's just just getting pitching to contact or something. Am I nuts for maybe playing Ryan Feltner against the Reds?
No, I have Ryan Feltner with the second best projection on the slate, so I'm fine with that.
You mean raw point projection?
Raw points projection.
Oh yeah, and he's 50. He's one of the cheapest. He's like the second cheapest pitcher.
Yeah, there you go. Just play Feltner. Feltner is actually hashtag good. He is actually a good pitcher.
Is he real? Is he real hashtag good, or hashtag good in the context of this season where no pitcher, not many are hashtag good?
So I think yes and no. I think it's both of those things, but I do think that in the same way that John Gray was a good pitcher with the Rockies organization, but he looked worse because he's with the Rockies organization, and then he went to Texas and like he's better now, right? Like he's a mid-rotation arm for Texas. I think Feltner is kind of the same way, but I think Feltner is probably a little bit better than John Gray. From like an underlying stats and like a mechanical and delivery perspective, I think that Ryan Feltner is actually a good pitcher. He could go to another organization. Like he's going to get traded to either Tampa Bay or Houston and be like good. He's going to be like a 3.9 xFIP guy with a team and an organization that don't suck. So I think the Ryan Feltner is actually pretty good. I have projected second best on the slate. Granted, Chris Sale is the only pitcher that actually projects like a starting pitcher on this slate, but I think that Feltner is a really good option. The other guy that we didn't mention yet is Kiter Montero. I think
the question here, James, is do you need a 4K pitcher on this slate? Because I don't think so.
I don't think that you need it. But I do think that it is worth saying that he's another guy that I think is actually good. Like from a real life pitcher perspective, I think that Kiter Montero is actually a pretty good pitcher. And if we're just looking at it purely, if we think that Andrew Abbott at 8,200 is what, $1,700 overpriced, $1,500 overpriced, Kiter Montero is like $2,500 underpriced. Like there's no reason that Kiter Montero should ever be less than 6K at the very least, and probably somewhere closer to 6,500.
Right. There's no reason that he should still be priced as the relief
right
pitcher.
Like, what are we doing here? There's no reason for that. So I absolutely think that Chris Sale plus Ryan Feltner or Chris Sale plus Kiter Montero is just where you start. I just don't know why. Like you can go John Gray. I'm fine with that. In small fields, I think that it probably makes sense to go Chris Sale and John Gray because you lower your volatility of your lineup a little bit. But in large fields, I don't know why you don't just go Chris Sale and Ryan Feltner or Chris Sale and Montero and just get the best.
Well, I mean, I think your point, James, is that outside of Chris Sale, like all the other pitchers on this slate should be 7K or less, regardless of who they are. Like all of them should be about the like. If it was Chris Sale at 10.5 and literally every other pitcher on the slate was 6,500, you'd still have a choice between John Gray and Feltner and Abbott and like they'd all be around. I mean, even you look at the bat projections; they're all somewhere between 9 and 12, right, or something like that. So like why pay 8,500 for a 12-point projection when you could pay 5,500? Or like it really comes down to like the bats that you play. But taking a look at the slate today with the stacks, like it's not like anything is really that expensive. And truthfully, the odd point is that like the most expensive stack on the slate from a point per dollar perspective is the team facing Chris Sale. So like it's like the opposite of what it should be. Typically, the best pitcher on the slate, you have the batters that you go, oh well, they're cheap, and let's see if Sale gets blown up. It's like no, the Diamondbacks are what? What do you? I mean, obviously, if you're not playing Chris Sale, you have all the money in the world in order to spend on them. But I don't know why you would with a 3.3 implied run total. So do you want to get to? Let's start ranking the stack. Can we put the Diamondbacks on the F tier? Even though me, 5-game slate, Chris Sale is going to be a bazillion% owned. Like, I mean, I on a 5-game slate, maybe I have to put them on the D tier, but just like their price, they're like the third lowest projected in the bat. Yeah, I'm convincing myself that it's a 5-game slate. They can't be an F tier team because if Chris Sale is going to be 50% owned, he blows up even if he blows up 2 or 3 times a year, this may be the time, and they'll be the lowest owned stack, and you just win everything if that happens.
I mean, Chris Sale is going to be 75% owned. You just can't put a team in the F tier if there's a 75% owned pitcher, especially a team like Arizona that actually has power. Like Christian Walker is arguably the best first baseman in his division. They got to be in the D tier.
Okay. So let's start at the top though. Bat projection wise, the clump of teams, like half the teams on this slate, according to the bat projection, stack wise, project about that they're like 2 points, and there's like 1, 2, 3. There's like 6 teams that are like 2 points within each other, and then there's like bottom of the barrel stuff. So let's get rid of the bottom of the barrel stuff first, and then talk about that clump. Okay. So the worst projected team on the slate, according to the bat, is the White Sox against Chris Paddock. I'm not playing Chris Paddock today because I don't think he is a leash long enough to matter, even though it is against the White Sox. The White Sox are cheap, though. A 5-game slate. I mean, I'm not playing the White Sox today. I mean, I don't mind putting them in the F tier, but I don't know if you could make a case that, like, would you rather play? Basically, here's the question: would you rather play the Tigers against Gavin Williams or the White Sox against Chris Paddock? And whoever you're going to want to play, I'm putting in the D tier. And whoever you don't want to play, I'm going to put in the F tier.
So just to speak to all of this clumping, the second best stack that I have today has a 19% chance to score 8 or more runs, and the second worst stack has a 13% chance. Like that, it's just like all the teams are just in the middle. That second worst team is the White Sox. I have Detroit as the worst at just 10% to score 8 plus. So, I mean, the problem is Paddock is going to be owned. So, I think, well, not like owned, but more owned than Gavin Williams. I mean, you don't get anything from stacking either one of these teams, man.
Well, I'm not saying I will be doing this. I'm just saying
no. I'm just saying in general, you don't get anything from stacking either one of these teams. So I think, I don't know. They both suck. I would say that I think that
we got to take a stand, James. People don't like the tier lists when which like everything's in C. Like we're not just going to line up 10 teams in C and go play whoever you want.
All right, here's
some people
coin.
Actually want some takes or whatever. So that's why I asked. It's like, would you personally, if you had a lineup and you had the gun to your head, you got to play a 5-man Tiger stack or a 5-man White Sox stack. Which one would you? I know I'm not doing either, but which one would you do?
Okay, heads for White Sox, tails for Tigers.
I'm fine with that. Go do it that way.
Heads. I'd rather stack the White Sox.
Okay, so there we go.
There you go.
So now you see our wonderful method of choosing the 2 worst teams on the slate. Okay, so here's a team that's below the clump, but not that far away. Leverage here. The Angels against John Gray. The Angels are also very cheap. I'm going to make a case that John Gray is going to be over-owned today at 7K, and I'm putting the Angels maybe not in the A tier, but in the B tier, simply because they're according to the bat, the best team between them and the best team on the slate is like 3.5 points.
Sure.
And I think the Angels may be one of the lowest owned teams. At least in the lower third. And if John Gray is going to end up at like 35% owned, like, dude, I've seen John Gray give up 11 runs in 2 innings. I mean, like, and with like no strikeouts. So like, I'm playing 3 lineups tonight. I think the Angels are going to be one of them.
Yeah, I think that they'll be the second lowest team. I have LA as, with some ownership, 34% owned, and the lowest being Arizona at 26% owned. And there is quite a difference between pitcher propensity between Chris Sale and John Gray. So I absolutely agree that John Gray is going to be over-owned. Angels very likely under-owned. I think I'm fine with them in the B tier. I can agree with that.
Okay, now we get to the clump. The clump at the top. We got 6 teams. Right. Right. All projected very similarly. Let's start at the top, at least. The Rangers against Davis Daniel. I don't think they're going to be the highest owned team. I don't think they're going to be the lowest owned team. I'm good with. They're not my. I have one A tier team. Because we're gonna have one A tier and one F tier team because we don't want to just shove everyone in the middle. I'm going to put the Rangers in the B tier because I think price-wise, comparison to some of these, like the Rangers and the Twins, like the Twins against Flexen, I think the Twins have the highest ceiling. I think the Twins will be the most owned because you can pay for that stack. But I put the Twins in the B tier also just due to they can't be an A tier because of ownership. Maybe the Rangers go in A tier because of price also. Like, it's just that I'm not sure if you're going to need it. Like, it's one of those things where if you're playing Feltner or Montero or something, it's like it doesn't matter that the Rangers are like cheap in order to play them. So where are you putting the Rangers and the Twins?
Well, the Twins I'll put in the A tier. Basically any team against the Rockies, I'm just always happy to put them in the A tier.
Yeah, but they're going to be they're going to be the highest owned team. Do you think, James? Do you think that even though this is what I always say, there's no such thing as good chalk and bad chalk, right?
Yeah.
So even though the Twins may be the highest owned team, are they could still be under-owned, right? I mean, like they could still be. Are people not going to play the Twins enough, even though they are going to be the highest owned team?
So first, let me retract. I said I'll play any team against Colorado. They're facing the White Sox. So my bad on that. But yeah, I have them as the only team that has like a separation away from every other team on this slate. I do think that they will be the highest owned team, but I don't think I care if I'm using Ryan Feltner and Kyler Montero as SP2, right? Like I don't think I care. And on top of that, we haven't talked about the Rockies yet, but if I go Chris Sale with the highest owned stack, and then I also have a secondary stack of the Rockies, like it doesn't matter that I have the highest owned stack because I have enough relative value by going up against, for whatever reason, the second highest owned pitcher of Andrew Abbott against Colorado. So I don't have any problem with
that. Okay, so I'm going to put the Twins on the B tier, but we both agree Rockies A tier.
Yeah.
The Rockies and the Bat have the second highest projected stack, yet are the third or fourth lowest owned stack. Andrew Abbott probably ends up being 25-ish, maybe even 30% owned. I think that's the best of both worlds. I mean, if I had a main lineup today, I think I'm playing the Rockies with the Angels. Maybe a Twins one-off, right, or something like that. That looks like, the type of lineup that I would play. You play Chris Sale, you play Ryan Feltner, you play a Rocky stack who, I mean, are not cheap, but you can mix that with 3 one-offs or something. And that would be my main way to go to them. But like one of my 3 lineups is going to look like that. I'm assuming you agree on the Rockies.
Yeah. Rockies have to be A tier. I also have them over at Patered as the second highest upside stack, 19% chance to score 8+ runs. It's just a good spot. It's a good ballpark. Rockies, they typically need a good ballpark in order to do well anyway. So I'm fine with that. And again, it comes down to I always tell people, if you're playing in small field, you only need 1 point of leverage. There would be nothing wrong today if you went Chris Sale plus John Gray plus a Rocky stack. That is a perfectly fine small field lineup. In large field, it would be totally fine to go Chris Sale, Ryan Feltner, Rocky stack. That is a totally fine large field lineup. You just don't need that much leverage, and we get it relatively often, but we don't get it all the time where we get a stack that is going up against one of the highest owned pitchers where the expert consensus is, why is this pitcher one of the highest owned pitchers? I'm going to stack this team. Like, we get that with Rockies today. So absolutely agree they're an A tier team.
Well, we talked about Ryan Feltner, how much we want to play him at 5,500. How about the Reds against him? Because they also project well. This is not a situation where we're going, well, Ryan Feltner's going to come out 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, no earned runs or whatever.
Right.
Like, dude, it's the Cincinnati Reds in Cincinnati. Ryan Feltner could easily just not do well. I mean, we're not talking about good pitching today. But I think my attitude is that I think that Feltner may be underowned and the Reds may be overowned, not by a huge amount, but I think I don't want to eat chalk Abbott, chalk Gray right? I'd rather get different at SP2, being that I think the Rockies are underowned, and I think the Reds may actually come in with higher ownership than the Rangers today. I'm putting the Reds in the C tier.
I think C tier feels fine. I mean, they still project well. Like I have them 18% score rate plus runs. They're right below the Rockies, but they're going to be 3 times as high owned as the Rockies. They should come in as the second highest owned stack behind Minnesota. So C tier feels right. I don't mind stacking Cincinnati, but they're going to be overowned. I think that I feel confident in saying that. I think they will come in overowned. It doesn't feel good. I'd rather just play Feltner. This is just, and actually this is kind of one of the things that I usually have a hard time reconciling, is understanding that I really like Feltner and I really like the Rockies and I really don't like Abbott, and the Reds I think are going to be overowned. So it's really easy to over leverage myself on a slate like this for the contests that I play.
Right.
Specifically playing the 250 4 max, right? Like if I build
right, you don't need like that Rockies Angels Feltner lineup, like
right.
Like you can play it in that contest, but I mean you don't have to.
I do not want to. I shouldn't. Right. I shouldn't. Right? Like that is a larger field or a winner take all type kind of contest. And we talk about these things all the time in Theory DFS in both editions of it. We talk about understanding and building for the contest that you're in. And for me, in the contest that I play when I play DFS, building something that is Ryan Feltner plus Chris Sale plus a Rocky stack plus the Angels in something like 250 is just not the move, Chief. So that is something that you play in the 15 or you play in the $4.20 max, and you play in these larger field contests. I run into issues like that sometimes where I'm just like, oh man, but if I get this and I'm going to win by 40 points, and then I have to remind myself, I don't have to win by 40 points. Don't do that. Just win by 5 instead and play the chalk secondary stack, and don't be an idiot about it.
Okay, we got 2 more teams left. You mentioned Kiter Montero, 4K today. He's an option. Yeah. The Guardians, they're in this clump. Yeah. But they're about as expensive of a stack as the Twins are. The Guardians also go in the C tier just because you think they're going to be slightly more overowned than Montero today. I mean, is it the same type of situation that you'd kind of rather, if you're not playing Feltner, you'd play Montero, and the Guardians are like perfectly acceptable as a stack, but maybe not necessarily the better options compared to like the Twins and the Rangers?
Cleveland is just the biggest nothing burger on this slate. You don't get anything from playing them. They're appropriately priced. They're kind of expensive, all things considered. The opposing starting pitcher is not owned. They're right in the middle of the group for me. There's a big nothing burger. I think C bordering on D is where I would put them.
Could you say the same about the Braves against Gilbert Diaz?
I'd probably put the Braves are C bordering on B just because of their upside, and you can afford them. That's the big thing. If you're going Chris Sale plus Ryan Feltner, you got a lot of money. If you're going Chris Sale plus Kiter Montero, you have a lot of money to spend. So you're probably going to end up spending money on the Braves, especially, if you stack the Twins, they don't have an expensive first baseman. So you can just slot in Matt Olson there, right? Like in general, I think that the way that you build today is likely going to lend itself to using either the Braves or the Twins. And I think that both are very fine stacks. Braves, I think, have a bit more upside than the Twins in the depth of their lineup, but I'm fine with them in C just because I don't want to put another B tier team, I think.
You know how much I love the comments of play the Rockies and lose. Thanks for your.
Oh God, yes.
What happened with the Cubs that other time? I mean, I don't come on. See the James. I don't come on. I don't come on these shows and gloat about the day before or whatever like that. But dude, you know how much crap I got Grinders Live last Thursday with it's like, I'm playing the Cubs against Christian Sanchez, and people are telling me in chat, I got like 5 or 6 people saying like you're an idiot. I'm like they're 2% owned. It's like it has nothing to do about it's like, dude, the bet has them as like the 4th highest projected stack on an 11 game slate, and they're 2% owned. Yeah, I'm gonna play them. And of course, they went. Ian Happ had 2 home runs that game, and whatever. They were the 2nd highest scoring team on the slate. In the GPP, winner, right? Of course, I had what's his name, Bailey Ober, as my pitcher that slate, so it prevented me from winning a lot of money. Instead of having Nick Pivetta in my lineup. But like I said, even though I'm doing it again, I'm doing it. I don't talk about I got this right, I got that wrong, because at the end of the day, that's not the game that we're playing. We're not trying to get things right. We're trying to look at the probability of things happening versus what the field is going to do against that probability. So when we say that the Rockies are going to be underowned against Andrew Abbott, and Andrew Abbott is going to be overowned, is that like it doesn't, whatever the probability of Andrew Abbott having a great game, that number is underneath the amount of his ownership. And the Rockies, no matter if they have a low shot of being the top stack, their ownership is under the actual true probability. Just like in MMA, right? If someone's a minus 300, minus 200 favorite, right? That means that's 66% implied probability. So it's like, if you think the underdog wins more than a third of the time, then bet on the underdog. Doesn't matter that, well, what happens if it's a plus 400 underdog? It's like, do you think he's gonna win more than 20% of the time? Well, yeah. Then bet on him. It's like, if he wins 23% of the time and you do that all the time, you make money, even though 3/4 of the time you lose. So like it's about profitability, not probability. So the same thing with the Rockies today. Like, I don't think, James, me and you are like some oracle from the future going, the Rockies are going to be the top stack. You have those percentages. You run your own model, and it's like, what does your model say about the Rockies being, a team that scores 8+ runs today? What is their probability?
19%.
Okay. Well, I have the ownership of the Rockies 5-man stack, an average of about 6 or 7%.
There you go.
Right. If the Rockies were going to be 30% owned, you know what we'd be saying? We'd be moving the Rockies way down and going, wow, they're really overowned. Right. So that's really what it comes. That's what we're doing here. So we're not predicting, like the White Sox, like for instance, the Tigers. But what's their probability of scoring 8+ runs in your model?
10%.
Okay. And they're going to be around that ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And the median is also the lowest. So it's like on this slate, they're an F. But it's a 5-game slate. If you want to play the Tigers, it's not like the end of the world, right? We just had to put someone in the F tier. But that's all. Folks, that's all we're doing, right? We're not predicting. We're just what's going to prove to be the most profitable long term in what we believe the ownership is going to be in our DFS contests today. And that's the type of stuff, James, that we talk about in the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. Both the beginners fundamentals masterclass, as well as the advanced players course with our Excel tools, right? You can see us and everything. It's a grand total of like 21 hours of audio, tools, tutorials, video tutorials. It's a structured view. You could go back and watch this show and my shows and all my stuff on YouTube for like 700 hours and get all of this. But instead of doing that, you could just listen for nice audiobook form, 21 hours, and you'll learn that type of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Even though Michael Nax is giving me credit for the Cubs.
That's rare. You don't usually get
the Rockies are a road too far for him. They just simply suck.
Here's a fun fact. Over the last 25 games, the Rockies averaging 4.36 runs per game. Okay. The Reds, 3.84. So who sucks more?
Yeah, but what that the short-term trends? Oh, you're Mr. Short-term Trends. I forgot.
I'm Mr. Short-term Trends. Yep.
Right, Mari has it right. Yeah, we're playing the Rockies because we're not playing the Rockies because they're good. We play them for the leverage. Right. That's the only reason, because comparison to their projection, they're under-owned. Someone for the same price, twice as many people or more on this slate are playing a 5-man twin stack.
Right.
And in the bat, the Rockies and Twins are nearly identically projected.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
That's it. You think they suck? Then don't play them. And I know that, and I know that I'm going to be wrong like most of the time. But when I'm right, I want to win the most amount of money.
Right.
Yeah, even Allen's backing on us. The Rockies scored 8 total runs in course over the. Okay, well, he's not backing us up. That's the last 3 games. Who cares about the last 3 games? And then we got the BVP people. Okay, we've opened up the door to the crazy people. The crazy people, the BVP people. Those are the tinfoil hat people. Yeah. 3 for 6 versus Abbott. But at least Brandon admits. At least he admits he's part of the tinfoil BVP cult. Okay, I think we can get out of here before more and more cult members come out and claim that we're blasphemous, that we don't give a crying hoot about BVP sample sizes. James, people can find you at paydirtdfs.com.
Yeah, you can find everything I put together at paydirtdfs.com. You can also find over on Fantasy Life, they launched premium product today, and there's some pick'em tools and some projection tools that are powered by Paydirt. So you can find my stuff over there as well.
Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter at BlenderHD. We got Grinders Live later today, 5 p.m. Eastern, then 6 for Crunch. Remember, this slate starts early, 6:40 p.m. It's a small slate. There's not much baseball today. So crunch time, 6 o'clock. We got to look out for some weather today. I know we didn't mention it, right? Atlanta, there may be some weather issues. Colorado, I mean, we talked about Colorado. According to the early forecast, Roth thinks like everything goes fine. But, I mean, obviously take a look at the yellow for Colorado, I think, is wrong. I think, no, this is for sorry. I'm looking at the Sunday weather forecast. So who the hell knows? Right, the Monday's forecast isn't even up, right? Because the Rockies are not in Colorado. So okay, disregard that. So yeah, we'll have to check when the new weather report is up later today. So hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thumbs. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. I'll be back on tomorrow, all this week. Remember, next week, All-Star break, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There won't be a show. James, I won't see you next Monday. Right?
Sad.
We get to touch grass, I guess.
Dude, it's best ball time.
Oh,
best
yes,
ball.
that's what the All-Star break is for, right? You have no DFS, you have no betting or whatever. Yeah. Time to sit on my couch and grind out the 45-minute best ball drafts. Yeah, that's exactly
there you go.
During the All-Star break. But I'm always here for you. Otherwise, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern. Talking about all things you're thinking about in daily fantasy, props and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.